a lot of button clicking, so 1 second. Okay, you should be good to go. If you don't have access to record, just shoot me a message in the chat. I'll give you access. Anyway, thank you all for being here. Thank you, Renee, for taking the time to do all of this. We're just going to go ahead and open it up for questions. Please keep your microphone on mute unless you're talking. And if you're going to ask a question, I ask that you turn your video on so we could see you, so we're not talking over each other. But anyway, I'll let you take it away.
Renee, thank you so much for doing this. My question for you is, when was that exact moment when you realized that you must stand up and stand for social justice and just go ahead and opt out for this season?
Yeah, I would say probably May 25th. I think that there was a lot going on. And then when George Floyd got murdered, I think it woke America up. It woke the world up. You've seen protests all over the world. So I think for me at that moment, I just like, man, it's like, you can't ignore it anymore. Like, we need to do something. So I think at that moment was where I kind of knew that something like my heart like went out to that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Renee, how are you?
I'm good. What's up?
Thank you so much for giving us your time to do this. So I do know that, you know, your former teammate, Maya Moore, has been in the news a lot for what she's been doing over the years. Have you talked to her at all about what you were going to announce today and what you've been doing in the past as well?
I actually haven't. It's funny because like I knew when she did it, I always thought that was interesting. You know, I didn't really get it yet. I was like, that's interesting, but that's dope. Like I always just thought like my mind's dope. And then when I got the urgency and the feeling that I need to do something too, then I got it. So that's why I started telling people like, yeah, she's the smartest person in the room, because she was ahead of the time in a sense that, I mean, right now, everybody like, yeah, we get it while Renee is doing it. And I was even nervous that people would get it when I'm doing it now. So I didn't talk to her, but I talked to Coach Ariema yesterday on live. I know a lot of people probably saw that. And he was saying the things that he was asking Mama when she called him. So she's like, yeah, you know, Maya Moore called me when she was thinking about sitting out, and I asked her some questions. I'm like, what did you ask her? Because, you know, I already knew I was thinking about it. So he's like, I asked her, you know, would you be okay financially? So I'm like, yeah, I hope so. I mean, I don't like, you know, like I don't really care. And then he was like, do you understand that it could affect your career, your basketball career? People might not accept it well. So I'm like, I guess I can accept that, you know, and he was just going through all the things that he had asked her. So I was answering the questions in my mind. And then this morning I told everybody that I'm going to opt out. So I think the response that I got also confirmed to me that this is where I need to be.
Thank you.
Hi, Renee. Corita Parks with the 3-point conversion. I just wanted to ask, how integral was it for you to have the support of the team in your decision?
Yeah, so I called Coach Nikki 3 days ago. I called her. I told her how I felt. I told her everything, you know, and I just, because I didn't know how a coach is going to take it, because that's their job, you know, like her job is how well we do on the court. So I called her to talk about something that's not about basketball, and her response was like the best case scenario. She was like, look, it sucks to not have you this season, but like, we support you all the way. I get it. And let us know if we can do anything. And before I even said that, her, Chris Yanko, my coach Darius, they had already donated to my foundation. So they really are about it. And for them to actually show it, not just say it, but I mean, you saw their statements that they released. That's not an easy thing for a team to do. The team's job is to perform in the season, but they went out on a limb and showed their support. So I'm so thankful for that.
Thank you.
Hey, Renee, question for you. I'm Sarah with the AJC. What do you plan to focus on during this time? You know, do you have any feelers out there, or what are you gonna use this time to focus on?
Well, since I said that this morning, I took a leap of faith. I didn't have like a specific plan. I just kind of knew that this is where my heart is. So let's see where it goes. And since then it's been crazy. I'm not gonna lie. Uninterrupted hit me up, and there's the More Than a Vote campaign, and there's different things that I want to be connected. And that's what I was telling people. Look, I just know that I want to create a change. So if there's businesses, other companies, other foundations doing things, then I want to be a part of it. Like I want to be a part of wherever this movement is going, because it's going somewhere good. So I want to be with it.
Was this a difficult decision for you at all? Like I'm sure, because I'm sure it's hard, to give up basketball, even if you're doing something that's so important.
It's very difficult because I've played basketball literally my whole life. Like since I was 10, basketball was the thing I did. Like everybody associates me with basketball. So to give up that comfort zone of basketball, yeah, that's scary. But in the same breath, I felt strongly enough that I knew whatever happens, this is the right decision for me. So yeah, I was super nervous right before I was about to press send on Twitter. I was like, oh my goodness, what is about to happen, But I'm just, like I said, I'm so thankful that it turned out. Look at this. I did not expect this morning. Like, what are we doing? This is crazy. This is crazy.
Do you plan to return after taking this season off? Do you plan to return?
Yeah, so this is only just 2020. I just feel like there's just a moment right now that I want to capitalize on, in the sense of a lot of people want better. A lot of companies are like, how can we help? A lot of people are like, okay, what can we do? So they might not be asking those same questions in 4 months. And so for me, while they're asking those questions, while the whole world is looking at that, I want to be like a catalyst to keep it going.
Thank you.
Hi, Renee. It's Howard Mandel. I'm curious, and I've had this conversation with a lot of players who obviously are participating in the league as well, but the idea has been to make sure that the league is a catalyst for change, that the presence of a season amplifies and doesn't obscure a message. And so what I'm wondering is, how do you end up quantifying it? How will you know whether the overall season that's being played is a success? And then for you to make this very brave decision, how will you be able to quantify? What are you looking for knowing that this decision paid off in the ways you're talking about?
Well, I don't even, for the latter question, it already paid off. I already have been doing interviews on Yahoo, CNN, TMZ. So the message is already getting out there. Anytime that I can create the conversation to keep the conversation going, that's a win. So if I'm talking to you guys, that's how I'll quantitate. If we're still talking about this in November, I know that was great. Something right happened, because a lot of times we have short-term memory. It's like, all right, that's old, what's next? So if we can keep the conversation going to November, that's a win for me. And as far as the people that are going to the bubble and being a distraction, I don't think it's a one way or the other. I think there's multiple ways to go about this. This is my way, because this is how I know how I am I know how I prepare as an athlete. So you can ask my coaches, I'm like an over preparer. I watch way too much film. I read so if I go into the bubble, we have 3 games a week. I know how I am. There's not going to be much time for anything else. So I'm either all in or I'm not. So I don't want to go into the bubble and be wishing I was outside of it, basically. So that's kind of why I made my decision, and why I don't have a concrete plan yet. I just made my decision based off of where my heart is and how I know myself. And I wanted to tell my coaching staff early, because they need to get a player in, just the basketball logistics of it. I already knew, so no need to wait till the 25th.
Thanks, Ray. Thanks for all you're doing.
Thank you.
Renee, I noticed your back and forth with some NASCAR fans on Twitter.
Yeah.
I see you're trying to know, and you're getting recognized by a lot of NASCAR fans. I've been looking around. Is that part of advocacy for you, changing hearts and minds of people and bringing awareness to you and the W and what you're doing? Yeah,
so that's kind of exactly what I want to do. The reason I got into NASCAR, the backstory is I have an esports show with Larry Ridley, and we were talking, and one of the topics was how a lot of fans were voicing their displeasure with NASCAR banning the Confederate flag. So I'm like, wait, what? And I'm like, all right, let me go on Twitter and make sure I voice how happy I am, what NASCAR is doing with the place. And so that was my way of putting positive, like that's exactly what I plan to do. Like in the future, it depends on whatever happens. But yeah, I wanted, because everybody loves to leave bad reviews, right? Like when we go to restaurants, we will always leave a bad review if it was terrible. But we don't always leave good reviews. So I'm gonna make sure we're going behind and we're leaving good reviews so that NASCAR knows there are people that want to join the NASCAR fandom because of what you're doing with the place. So that's kind of how that happened. And then I was like, why did that even go viral? I don't even really know, but maybe, I don't know, but it's interesting. You don't really plan, you can't plan these things. It kind of just happens.
Are you going to watch the race this weekend?
Yeah. Oh, Talladega.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what that, people have been reminding me every day, don't forget Talladega is coming. Like, listen, I'm in there.
Renee, this is Erica Ayala here. I actually wanted to ask you a little bit about the impact that you and other WNBA players have had on other women's sports. So I've been talking to a lot of female hockey players, which is not a sport that's known for having conversations about social justice and certainly not about racism. But a lot of the players have pointed to what you were able to do with Minnesota. When you hear things like that, and you know that the WNBA continues to be a league that other women's leagues look to, how would you like your decision to play a part in that?
Yeah, so that is true. And I say that all the time. I have people before me, and Maya Moore. There's plenty of people that speak out about social causes in the WNBA. It happens quite often, actually. I'm one of many. I'm just like, and I mean, when I say I'm one of many, I'm sitting out this season, but people have already made stances, and me sitting out, it's not to say that I'm doing any more than anybody else that might go into the bubble. So I just wanted to make sure that's clear. I just know myself, and I know that I would prefer to be all hands on deck here in Atlanta right now. But I mean, for me, that's humbling. If another sports league, they're professionals just like we are. So that's humbling to even hear that.
And also thinking of the conversations and sometimes the tension between whether it's players and the league or players and their own team to get to a point where WNBA players can make a decision like you're making. Again, thinking about other women in sports, how would you encourage them as they're going through their growing pains in their particular sport to be able to get to a place where there's more open dialogue?
Yeah, I would say be transparent. Like I talked about it. I talked to Coach Nikki for 3 hours. And that's not even, it's probably 3 hours plus. And the reason I say that is because it's not an easy conversation. None of this is. The whole race, this whole topic is just not an easy conversation. So now when we have to have public conversations that are uncomfortable, it's not easy. So I would just say you have to hit it head on. Like, I think that's how I've functioned always. I'm very transparent. So I called Coach Nikki and I'm like, hey, we need to talk, and I needed to tell her how I felt. And I'm so thankful that I had a team that was understanding. I know that everybody's story is not going to be like mine, where the GM and the coach and everybody's like, raw, go Renee. I know that's not going to be every team, but I am thankful it's mine.
Hi, Renee. Oh, sorry. Cheryl Coward from Hoop Feed. Speaking of difficult conversations, have you had any conversations with one of the team's co-owners about her stances and, talking about issues, especially when it seems that some of her views are in direct opposition to yours?
I have not. Sorry, I haven't. I don't have an answer to that because I have not.
Renee, basically like Trae Young, he was very vocal and he protested in Oklahoma. He spoke about losing followers. Has that happened to you? And what's your thoughts on those people that don't want to follow you anymore?
Wow, that's sad. But I have, if people don't want to follow me anymore, that's their choice. I can't hold on to them like, no, you're not going. But I think it's sad that you would unfollow your favorite athlete for that. And I'm talking in reference to Trae Young. He's a lot of people's favorite athlete. So if you unfollow him for that, I mean, that's their choice. But kudos to him. I love it. That's why I say you love to see it. It's not an easy thing to do. So you love to see when people are just doing the not easy, necessary thing.
Hey, Renee, I have another question for you. So you have been out in the streets doing, or basically involving yourself with the protests. Saw you giving out water or something to keep the people hydrated. How did you come to that kind of idea, and what got you out there?
So it was one of those simple things, sitting watching TV. And I'm like, wow, I don't know how they're out there for 9 hours. You're here in Atlanta too, so you know it's hot outside. So I'm like, how are they doing that for 9 hours? I know they thirsty. And then that's literally how I was like, I'm gonna go give them some water. I was like, I'll go give them some, like, I felt like I had like this great idea. And then I pull up and there's like 5 of the cars taking out water as I pulled up, and I'm like, okay, so everybody's gonna give Atlanta water. But at the end of the day, all the water ran out. So that's when I knew, okay, I need to keep coming back. There's a lot of people out here.
Renee, on the NBA side, we heard Kyrie Irving talk about how with the season starting, having concerns that it would distract from the social justice causes. And now with you deciding to sit out, and I know you made that decision independently, but do you think we'll see other WNBA players potentially following suit?
I mean, I do know that there's other WNBA players that feel the same way I do. I also think that it's there, you know, like you have to let people either say it on their own or not. So I don't know what people will ultimately decide to do, but I do know that there's multiple WNBA players that feel the same way I do.
Thank you.
Hey Renee, it's Jacob with CBS 46. How you doing?
Jake.
Hey, just a quick question with this decision, were there any like health concerns about the bubble? Did that like factor into your decision at all, or was it purely like this is an important cause and that's it?
Well, people that know me know that I am like a little bit of a germaphobe. So I think a lot of people were not surprised about me going into the bubble because they thought it was going to be for that. Like originally, right when people heard the bubble idea, a lot of people hit me up and like, you're not going into the bubble, are you? And the people are asking that because Kelsey, she might have seen, but I travel like on the planes. Even before this, I wear a mask on the planes and everything. So I had like an abundance of masks here when everybody was like not having any. I had already had them stocked up because I travel in them. So I am a bit of a germaphobe in that aspect. So that wasn't appealing to me. But ultimately, I just like, I don't know if that would have stopped me from going in, but being out here and hands-on in Atlanta did.
That's cool. Thanks.
Hey Renee, it's B. Terrell or Brandon with Made for the W. How are you today?
What up, B?
How you doing? All right. So I guess a couple questions. You mentioned earlier that a lot of companies are wanting to get involved, or they have been, of course, opening the bag and throwing a lot of money at the issues. So whether it be like apparel or footwear, things like that, what are ways that you've seen that have caught your eye with how apparel companies may be getting involved to help with the change? And I guess what are some ways that some other things that you would like to see going forward?
Yeah, well, first of all, Jordan Brand donated $100 million, I believe, to social justice reform, and that can go to different places. That's a lot of money. That helps. I would say Nike's campaign, and the reason I say those things is because once companies of that magnitude take a stance, that's a big deal because that's corporate. And if people know what corporate means, like that's a big deal. A lot of times people like to stay out of social things because they don't want to upset corporate. So for any brands that took a stance, and even put different hashtags or different support, I think that's a big deal because you didn't used to see that 4 years ago in Minnesota. We didn't see that.
Okay. And with the Renee Montgomery Foundation, are there any partnerships that you're looking forward to or possibly considering forming to keep the ball rolling?
Look, that's what I said. I hope that people reach out, companies, brands, people here in Atlanta. I really didn't have a plan. I know it sounds crazy to do something this magnitude and not have a plan. I really don't have a specific plan. So I would love for people to reach out, people that already were moving in this direction. I want to be like a catalyst and help and join in on any different things. So I'm open right now. I just knew I wanted to do something. So here we are.
Okay, thank you.
Renee, hi Renee, this is Zach Ward from Swish Appeal.
Hey.
Just wanted to ask you, looking at the NBA and just looking at the NBA and what they've been doing, what would you like to see coming from them in terms of taking action in these times?
What do you mean?
Like I know LeBron was indicating a lot of stuff, and just what are you hoping for from the NBA versus just the WNBA?
I think everybody used their platform. That's why I said there's no right way to do this. Like LeBron had made a statement that, you know, he can do a lot inside the bubble. He's LeBron. He really can. Like, I believe that no matter where LeBron is, he can create waves. So I think that if all the athletes, whether it's tweeting, whether it's doing whatever, if we all use our platforms, we all have the same common goal. I just really think that something like amazing is going to happen. I just really believe that. So I think that the NBA players, they're going to think of ways to do whatever they do. I don't really have I don't know what I expect for people to do, because I think everyone's going to have their own way of how they create change.
Renee, this is Michelle Vopo of ESPN.com. I think it's fair to say back in 2016, the league had some missteps in how it initially responded, especially to the Lynx wearing their shirts. But then there seemed to be dialogue, and that got better. How much do you feel like the league has progressed in the last 4 years to where they are now in support of the Black Lives Matter movement?
Yeah, well, I'm wearing a league shirt right now, and it says bigger than ball. So I hope that that's moving forward. And I said this before to someone, but if people want to change, or companies want to change, or brands want to change, you have to allow them the space to do it, or we'll always just keep moving in this standstill spot. So yeah, in 2016, the league was not very welcoming of a team basically wanting to be social justice warriors. It wasn't very welcoming. The Minnesota Police Department wasn't very welcoming. But if people want to now grow from that 4 years from now and be welcoming and try to help and try to have allyship, then I'm happy to see it.
Renee, has it been encouraging to see, obviously what you're doing right now, but also, you know, Matt Ryan has spoken up. The Hawks have been pretty outspoken. Lloyd Pierce has been very outspoken. Has it been good to see that from different Atlanta sports figures?
It has. And speaking of Coach Lloyd Pierce, I actually hit him up yesterday and I told him about my event. Really last minute. I probably should have told him beforehand. But he said he would have came, but he already had a previous engagement. So yeah, it's great. Now I think that's exactly what we should do. We should all be connected, and because the more people, there's strength in numbers. Everyone knows it. So if we all understand that we want the same thing to happen, well, yeah, let's unite. Let's make it happen.
Renee, we know that you spoke to Coach Nikki about everything. Have you spoken to assistant coach Darius? And if so, what has he said about everything?
No, so when I called Coach Nikki, it was basically like to tell her as a player that I don't know if I'm feeling this. You know what I mean? So I didn't call Coach Darius because I didn't want to call her to basically talk about why I'm mad. I called her not even mad, why I'm want to create change. I called her to tell her, like, this is happening. Like, something's happening and something's going on. And, you know, Darius had already told me he's going to be at my Juneteenth event tomorrow. So I don't really have to worry about where Darius stands on the case, because I know he got my back.
Is this something you had ever considered doing before? Obviously.
Honestly, no. I could answer that quick. No.
Okay.
Like in February, I had no idea that this was going to be something I was doing. Honestly, that's why I said I think the whole world had a wake-up call when we watched that video. I couldn't watch the whole thing. I just, like, it's just not for me. I can't see stuff like that. But even the little bit I watched, like, that was enough.
Have you talked to any other WNBA players who have been protesting in the streets and speaking out, like Natasha Cloud, and what have those conversations been like?
Yeah, for sure. Natasha Cloud's the homie. So of course we've been talking. There's actually quite a few WNBA players that feel the way I do. There's also, you know, financial problems. Like, people need to make money. So some people feel the way I do, but they understand too that they need to take care of their family. They have responsibilities. So that's why I said who plays or who doesn't, to me, it doesn't matter. I have a lot of WNBA players that's reached out to me already, Alexi Brown, Simone Augustus, like, just showing their support and telling me that, yo, if you need anything, let me know. So to me, that, like, we don't have to be in the bubble all together to be united.
Is it difficult almost to decide, because I know you said you don't have a set direction, you know, just now. Is it difficult to decide there's so many different directions you could take it? Has that been hard hard on you at all, trying to decide, okay, how do I get this started? Where do I go from here?
Yeah, a little bit, but I think that there's an obvious start point for me in a sense that Atlanta, we got voter suppression problems, and we have an election coming up in November. So to me, there's a timeline, there's a set date for a goal. So let's prepare for that. Because I think I heard somebody that was working the polls said, you know, the reason it took 9 hours for certain people to vote is because we didn't expect that many people, and we have new machines, and there was all kinds of different reasoning to why it happened. So maybe in September, October, I start talking to different polls, like, y'all getting ready, there's going to be an influx of people. How are we going to get them in and out? Because people need to be able to vote in a timely fashion. Like, no one wants to wait 9 hours to vote, and then that's a way for people not to vote. So maybe starting in October, starting in September, checking these different places that have had trouble, that typically always have trouble. Hey, what are y'all doing? Y'all ready? November's coming up, like different things like that, just to make sure no one's waiting 5+ hours to vote.
Right.
Renee, just piggybacking off that last question, as far as voting, I know that it was not necessarily all about the weight of the lines and long waits, but it also was issues with absentee voting. You know, some people did not get their applications in, or they did get their applications in, but didn't get their ballots in. How will you kind of work to address those issues as well?
Yeah, it's all the same encompassing problem of voting, because there's more problems too. Some people don't feel like their vote matters. You know, some people feel like if I vote, who cares? So there's a lot of things around voting. That is a problem, definitely a problem. I've heard other things too, where people were getting turned away. So for not having proper ID or some technicality, like there was a lot of technicalities where people got turned away. So we got to figure out, how can we get the message out there? When you go to the polls, make sure you have 1, 2, and 3 things. Make sure that this is what you need. If they tell you that you can't vote and you have these things, stay, like, you know, educate people. Because some people, if they didn't know that they were allowed to vote, they left. And so that's where, if you educate people and you say, no, if you have your state ID, if you have your voter's registration card, you can vote. Doesn't matter what they tell you, you can vote. Like, when people feel empowered when they know things. So knowledge is power.
Renee, can I just jump in and ask that question? Because you're talking a lot about November, and we were talking about quantifiable. Are there results in November that will seem like quantifiable examples of this work having turned into what you wanted it to be?
Absolutely. So we have a great way to kind of look at it, because we know when President Obama was running for office, the numbers were large and the people going to the polls. I mean, it was the cool thing to do. Everybody had their I voted thing, you know, so if we can get it back to that, and we can see that people are, like I said, if people are hype, excited about going to the polls in November, I mean, it's June. That's far away. So that is if that happens, I want a championship. Like, I don't care what nobody says. If we get people in and out, like, all right, like, I'm going to be at some polls, I'm sure. But I just think that people need to understand that voting is a right. Like, people fought to be able to vote. So let's make sure that we clean that part up.
It looks like we have time for one more question.
Renee, I just had a final question for you. As a Black woman and as a Black person, and seeing all this news and kind of being inundated with everything that's happening, have you had time to kind of reflect upon yourself, to kind of get away? There's really not a way to get away. I know you say you don't even watch the whole video. I couldn't watch the whole video. Have you been able to just take time for yourself, and how have you been able to kind of deal with everything that's been happening?
Yeah, I think that's the first thing that the pandemic did. And this is before George Floyd was murdered. I think the pandemic made everybody have a seat. Like, all of us were really busy. There was a lot of people that were just really busy. We were too busy for family. We were too busy to take care of ourselves. We were just too busy. And the pandemic made everybody sit in the house and calm down for a second. And I think that was great for me. It was almost a reset. I was relaxed, and then now we're all sitting and relaxing, and then we watch George Floyd get murdered. So then that happens. But as far as resting, I think that the pandemic got me as much rest as I need. I'm ready to roll. Like, I'm excited. Like, somebody asked me earlier, like, are you scared or nervous about your future? And I'm like, I probably should be, but I'm not. So that's just how I feel right now. Like, I don't know I really don't know what's gonna happen in a month and a half, but I just feel like something good is coming.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all for coming.
Thanks,
Thanks for
guys.
your time. Thank you, Renee,
Thank you,
for your
Renee.
time. We appreciate it.
Thank you guys.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelsey. Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.